Welcome to the Talk of the Town podcast. This is our season roundup, and full disclosure, we are recording this before the Tring game on Saturday. I'm here with Dunstable Town manager Steve O'Reilly. Steve, we've pretty much come to the end of the season now. Like I just said, we're recording this before the Tring game this weekend. How are you reflecting on your first season in management and B, your first season at Dunstable Town?
Yeah, it's been challenging. It's not been necessarily anything that I hadn't expected in terms of the role itself. I'm doing all the things that I was kind of anticipating that I would need to do. But we've obviously covered many times in terms of how difficult the start was for us and some of the challenges that were involved with that. But I think that I've enjoyed it. There's been moments that have been really difficult, and they've certainly tested myself, but the wider group, the club. And some of those have been on pitch, some have been off pitch. Some have been different types of things that you deal with. But there's been plenty of good moments as well. There's been some real success stories with some of the players. I've really enjoyed getting to know people at the club through the season and being involved in, as I say, sometimes not just first team football activity, but in different areas as well. So look, it's been really enjoyable. The club was kind of as sold to me, and certainly in the interview process and what I knew beforehand about the people and how good they were here, and so those things have been really positive as well. But you know me. I'd like to have won more football matches. I'd like to be higher up in the table. I'd like to be at this stage of the season competing and challenging for something, whether that be a cup or obviously our main ambition is to get out of this league. We're not in that position at this moment in time, but it doesn't mean that we've completely failed. We just haven't quite got to where we want to be at this moment in time. But I think we've laid some good foundations in place.
What's been the biggest challenge, would you say? Like you say, we've covered it quite a few times. So we don't have to go into massive detail. We've mentioned the first 6 games, a few players leaving, but what's been the biggest challenge for you as you've stepped into Dunstable Town? Like I just said, from the first 6 games, how have you found that? What's been the biggest challenge that you've found?
Yeah, I think that, preceding that, the recruitment in the summer initially, it was hard. And not really just the recruitment, just in terms of the scale of what we had to do. Obviously, we weren't really left with much at the end. And as we started, it was only a handful of players that were really left over from last year. So we kind of had to restart a little bit with that. And then I think it's just being, I was probably a little bit too much at the start, wanting to kind of impose kind of my way of working and wanting everything to kind of be the way that I pictured it in my head, or actually planned and, put plans together, and actually trying to be a little bit more flexible than that as we went along. Look, I think there was lots of really good things in terms of my previous role and how we worked that I kind of brought across here. But actually some of the stuff didn't quite fit and didn't quite work. And actually maybe that was because to do with the player group, or you're trading on different facility, all different things. And I think that, maybe initially I was maybe a little bit too, okay, this is exactly how we're going to do it. And I needed to be a little bit more adaptable and kind of understand, what the circumstances in the environment was that we were in at that moment. And then adapted to it. Now, I think that we improved on that through the season. And then the other part, it's always about managing players and personalities and people, and that's not just players, actually coaches and your physio staff and all of that you're trying to piece together, and just recognising, when, people are the right fit for the group and when people aren't quite the right fit, and, understanding, okay, what you need at different moments in time. Those are all difficult challenges. I think I've got some of them right along the way. I've got some that haven't quite worked out, and decisions that I've made. So, plenty of those types of challenges. But I think that, maybe when I initially came in, I was a little bit, okay, this is exactly how this is going to work. And then maybe wasn't quite quick enough to adapt to understand the circumstances we were in at that moment in time. But I think I got better with that as we went through the season.
How pleased have you been? I sat down with you last summer and we had brought a few lads in that have played college football, not really known in the non-league game. We look at like Luca, Cody, all them kind of guys who have now, everyone absolutely loves them boys at this club. How pleasing have you been with the growth of the football team from when you started to where we are now? Like you say, we're pretty much going to finish better than we did last season. The fans love the style of play. All the feedback I'm getting is that it's good from where Dunstable were to where they are now. What's been the most satisfying thing for you? Like you say, you brought in a lot of lads from the college football, and a lot of people in non-league just bring in names and they throw money at it. We haven't been able to do that at Dunstable, but it's been very pleasing to see the growth of this young team from where I sat down with you, in June last year to where we are now.
Yeah, massive part of it. And I think that there's actually all those stories all the way through the squad. So, you can speak about kind of the likes of maybe a Luca who's playing at this level for this first time and really fried. As you say, he's playing at MK College for the last few seasons, and in step 7. And it was his first year stepping up into step 5. He's been a real success story. But then you can go through the squad. We probably, I think I looked at it the other day, it's maybe 18 or 19 players under the age of 20 who we've given games to this season and starting appearances to this season, which is great. And, it's not like those have just been like one-off games. Some of those boys have played 30 odd games and started the majority of games for us. So, you look at the JJs, the Alex Butts, Jack James, Meady, Etham's under 20 start of the season. Charlie Smith's 17 years of age and played a couple of games and kept 2 clean sheets, really important games for us at different moments in time. There'll be so many more that I could probably mention as well. When we brought in, we had Louis Carr, all these opportunities that we've given to these players, but they've merited them, and they've deserved those opportunities as well. So those have been really good success stories. So those younger players who are playing at the level for the first time. But then there's others as well. We've got a group of the players who came kind of across with Liam, who's had a bit of experience, and some of them were relegated from step 5 last season with the teams that they were with. They've come in and been really successful and really thrived this season and had really great seasons. We've got some players that, have kind of been a little bit nomadic and had lots of different clubs in a season. This is the first time they've been in a place where they've stuck it all the way through. They've, found a place that they enjoy playing their football. So, there's not a single kind of big success from the playing side of things, but there's lots of individual players and who've made part of the group that have been really pleasing for us to see. And I think it's then kind of what we did when we added those little bits of quality different way through the season. Alfie coming back to the club was massive for us. He had a great impact. Adding the likes of Liam and Finbar through the season, who've been able to contribute. So yeah, lots of positives in those side of things.
While we're looking back at the season, let's take it back to where a lot of people, including myself, thought this team had really clicked. You look at Potton away, FC Romania away. Was that the moment for you as well where you thought, we're finally getting there? I remember being at FC Romania away and Potton away thinking, we've just played these lot on the pitch. I was chatting to a couple of the Potton lads after the game. They were like, wow, you're a completely different Dunstable team to what we've been told about for the first 6-7 games. FC Romania, we went over there, completely dominated the game. Was that a turning point for you personally as well, where you say you put all these plans in place and then we actually went and done it on the pitch? Yeah,
and Potton away was a big one because we'd kind of had as you mentioned, FC Romania, we'd obviously had the terrible start and we picked up a couple of wins. And then we got a draw at Shefford. Then we lost a couple of back-to-back home games, lost at London Lions away quite heavily, and we really played off the park that night or that afternoon. And I think that, myself and the management team kind of had a pretty serious sit down after that, and we looked at things and went, right, we've got to address a couple of key positions, but just, we needed to try and establish something better than that. So I think when we travelled to Potton away, we played 11 games and we'd lost 8. So it was pretty dire straight to that point. Like I say, we picked up a couple of wins, but we weren't in a very good position. And we had to change a few things that day. I remember, we pulled Luca in and he played at fullback. We brought Archie McClelland in, who played only a couple of games for us, but he made a real impact for us that day. We tweaked a little bit of how we were playing. I think it was the first game that we kind of played Meady in a kind of more advanced, more central position. So
scored a screen
and scored a fantastic goal that day. Luke had scored a goal that day. I think Will had only really just started to come back into the fold at that point. So he was kind of in a good moment then at that stage. I say it was Alfie's only second game for us. So, and they were running high at that time. They were second in the league. So we had a really good result there. And I think that gave us a real bit of confidence. And then I think we beat MK Irish here in the Cup. It wasn't their full strength side, but they had a lot of good players available. And then we played them on the Tuesday. And I think that really from that moment onwards, we've been a different type of team, certainly defensively. We've been really difficult to play against, and we've found a little bit of a method for us to be able to go and get points. And, since then, we've only lost the 3 games since then. Foster's this year, MK Irish back in November, and then obviously the game that we lost last Saturday, a bit disappointing to Wormley. But, really the form since then has been a top 5 sort of team. So that Potter game was a really big moment, and I felt that, as you said, maybe the Romania games, Biggles away games, they were kind of like getting up off the mat type of performances, and needing to really stick in there to go and get the results. I thought the Potter game we played really well, and we took a lot of confidence from that. And yeah, really since then, we've always been a competitive team since those games, and we've had pretty good runs as well. So yeah, that Potter was a big one. It really does stick out for me.
You're just touching on it. How pleasing is it for you? Just like you say, we've been competitive pretty much since them dark days at the start of the season, which it was always going to happen maybe because it was a new team, it's a new setup. We've been pretty competitive in every single game. Like you say, up until Saturday against Wernby, hadn't lost at home since the middle of September. How pleasing is that for you as a manager when you finally see the message getting across from what we do here on a Thursday night and on a Tuesday down at Houghton, that's getting across to the players on a Saturday? Because a lot of people have commented to me that I chat to, that I know of in the game that we've played against, saying, wow, you're really hard to play against now. You're hard to break down. We don't concede many goals. How pleasing has that been for you?
Yeah, it's a massive part of it. And I think, when you're struggling like we were at the start of the season, those are the things that you kind of get your first foundations in place, and you try to be difficult to play against. You try to make sure you're really hard working, difficult to score against, and then it always gives you a chance in games to, pick up a point, and sometimes picking up a point, it's certainly something that I've learned, not just this season, but really over the last couple of seasons. Look, we want to win every game, but actually picking up points, even if you're not playing well or whenever, really, you shouldn't turn them down, and it can keep your momentum going. So I think that's really part of it. I think that what kind of has coincided with that, or actually been a cause of that, is that there's a much better togetherness in the group now. Understandably, we kind of threw, a lot of players together at different points in time at the start of the season, that have never played together, that hadn't really got any kind of relationship with each other. Okay, a few lads may have known each other, but it wasn't really a team in that sense, and that's had to evolve as we've gone along. And then the players have shown really good character. You started to see different leaders step up. So we added some to the group as well. I mentioned Alfie earlier. His introduction made a big impact for us. And then, yeah, that's what I would expect. I remember saying to you initially, and whenever I speak to people here about kind of the type of team that I want us to be, first and foremost, I want us to be difficult to play against. I want us to be, people think, look, they work really hard, they're very organised, they're disciplined, they're very together. That they don't give up without a fight, type of thing. I need us to be better in terms of our quality, and that's ultimately why we're going to finish in a sort of a mid-table position, which is not disastrous given where we were at kind of that September, August time, but with actually a little bit more quality in different moments in time. And sometimes that comes with experience. Sometimes that's players that we might need to add. We'd have been up there, competing right to the very end for one of those top 5 places if we'd have been able to do that. So look, lots of positives in terms of the progress that we've made, certainly defensively, as you mentioned, one of the better defensive records in the league really since those early days. But we have to have, some improvement going forward into next season in terms of quality and winning more games of football. We've drawn a lot, when I'd like to see us win a lot more. But that's going to require us to score more goals and have better quality. But those are things that will come as well.
What's been the biggest surprise for you as you've stepped into your first management role? Obviously, I know you well enough behind the camera. I know what goes on here, but just for our people watching, is there anything that you've thought, wow, I didn't really see that coming? Obviously, you've not long stopped playing, so stepping into the role, obviously you're coaching at Harpenden, but stepping into the management role here at Dunstable Town, has there been anything that you thought, wow, I didn't really think that was what management was? Is there anything that's surprised you along the way?
I think the first thing is, it was kind of as soul, but, certainly just not surprised by how invested people are at this football club and, from a supporter's perspective, but, the volunteers, the likes of yourself and Brad, who's recording here, but, everyone who's involved, behind the scenes at this club, just the level of support is phenomenal. It's, I was at Harpenden, which was a fantastic club and had really great people behind the scenes and support. This is another level in terms of, the people who back you, the messages that I get from people after we get a result, whether it's good or bad or indifferent, the support they give the players, home and away, those types of things are, as I said, I was aware of what it was like here and that people did back the club, but actually being inside of it, you see that and it's phenomenal. And I think that it only makes my resolve for us to be successful and for us to try and achieve something greater, because I think there's so many good people behind the scenes who deserve that. And then I think on another really positive note, really, is, given the way that we started, I've been surprised by how a team that, is a young team, some of the games, we've had average age of about 20, and, you have 7 or 8 players who are under the age of 20, in certain games. I know like Hartlepool away, and I think Colney Heath away, we had similar games like that. But how a young team can actually be really quite consistent, I think that surprised me. It wasn't the case early on. And yeah, we've still had disappointments over the last, few months. I'd say Foster's particularly, and on Saturday was disappointment and was a bit of a letdown for us. But broadly speaking, a team that is young and relatively inexperienced at this level has been able to consistently get results and positive results along the way. It hasn't surprised me that there's areas that we've struggled and we need to improve upon. But, that level of consistency has been fantastic. And then outside of that, really, it's kind of what I expected. As I said, I think that, there's more room to grow for this group, and the players in this group, which is really exciting. But I know that I need to get some kind of additional support for them and some bit more experience, a bit more quality, which will help just bring everyone forward.
We haven't been able to talk about it yet. We've mentioned next season a few times, but now we can actually look ahead to next season. What does the summer hold for you? I know obviously we're all going to have a little break, but football's never going to be too far from our thoughts. What are you already thinking about next season as we move into the new season? Yeah,
I mean, inevitably, we're looking at, what members of the group who are here now, who are going to be here next season. And I think that, all the players that are here now are here because I believe that they're good football players and they're good characters. And I think that they contribute to what we're doing at the club at this moment in time. So, I've got a huge amount of respect for all of them. There'll be a process that will be in place in terms of, which is kind of already underway, but that myself and the management team will go through that kind of, player by player and create a view in terms of their role going forward for us. Some players individually may feel that they're going to get more opportunities elsewhere. Like all those things are very natural at this stage of the season. So we'll take stock of that. But, a real priority is going to be making sure that we retain the best players that we've got at this football club right now. That's kind of number one for me. And like I say, some of those conversations already happened. They'll be happening in the coming weeks, and, making sure that they understand kind of, their importance to what we do. But also that they're clear in terms of what the expectation is as we move forward and what we want to be able to achieve, because we've got good players here. We want to be, next season competing to get out of this league. That's absolutely the aim and the ambition, and we want to go and try and achieve that. So we're going to want the best players possible. So making sure we retain our best players, that's number one. In terms of obviously as part of that, the coaching staff and maintaining what we've got there as well. It's a huge part of what we do. So there's that, maintaining it. I'm really, really pleased with what we've got. We may look to make a couple of additions to that as well. So that's something that we're in the process of looking at in terms of maybe adding another coach potentially to the group. So that's something. There's the practical aspect of, pre-season. I know that our training pitch is going to be relayed, which is great news for us. So that's going to be kind of an upgraded facility that we'll get to use next year, but that kind of is going to be happening during pre-season. So we need to kind of make sure we've got a plan in place in terms of what we're doing there. The other practical aspects of pre-season fixtures and getting those in the diary and those sorted. And then the bit that I'm sure that everyone's really keen to know is kind of what we'll add to the group. And, we've got really clear ideas in terms of the positions that we need to add players. We've got really comprehensive list of targets that we've got. We kind of got them ranked. We know where they are, and but it's one thing having them, it's actually getting them through the door and having those discussions and conversations. So, as soon as the season's done, either, obviously our season will be done on Saturday, but others, and there's players who will be involved going in, a bit longer than that. But, I'll be working to have those conversations and making, those type of prospective players that we've got, they can understand what we're going to do here. It's going to be joining a really good group with lots of potential at a fantastic football club. And yeah, it's about making sure that when we come back for pre-season mid-June, and then when we start the season, either at the end of July or August, whatever that date is, that we're a better football team, that we're the football team that's going to be good enough to hit the ground running, because we know that, if we can do that, that puts us in a big advantage from where we were this season. But that has the quality, the experience, the energy, the right attitude, and a lot of those things we've already got. We need people to add to that, and we need to improve, and we need to be ready to go and challenge at the top of the league next season.
Steve, just finishing up, obviously the news that was broke about Andrew stepping down as chairman. Great guy, put so much effort and time into the club. He is staying with the club, by the way. He's not leaving. He's just moving aside. You know, the chairmanship is big at any club, but I think non-league football, I think it's a hard job, mate. It's such a hard job. What's your thoughts on the guy that brought you to the club? Such a great man. We're going to sit down with him and get an interview with him at a later stage. But what's your thoughts when you heard the news about Andrew stepping down?
Yeah, I mean, look, it was, I spoke with Andrew about it and completely understood his reasons. And as you say, he's still going to have a huge impact in terms of what this club is going to be doing moving forward. So on a personal perspective, I can't speak highly enough of kind of what he's done for me, himself and, the directors who gave me this opportunity and supported me, in the role from day one, even in the toughest of moments. That's certainly something that I won't forget. I know that the players massively appreciate Andrew and the support that he gives. But the management team even more so, I had some really tough moments, in terms of the start of this role, but, extreme supportive, extremely calm, very, very helpful in that way. Really good at putting things into perspective. So that, from a personal perspective, will be a real shame that he's not kind of doing that from the position of chairman. But I know that he'll be doing that in his other roles as well. And he's going to be obviously still involved with the club and keen to see us do well. And then on the broader context, like I say, I've seen 12 months of what he does, and it's phenomenal in terms of all areas of the football club. So, obviously supporting myself and what we do with the first team, all the way through to all the community work and really spearheading that for the club. So, I've seen that in 12 months. There's people here that have seen him been doing that for 5 years, particularly from the chairman position, and all the things that we know about, and I think sometimes it can easily take for granted. And again, wasn't here, but the growth in terms of the attendances, the tenure, for him will be looked at so fondly and positively by people. And I really, I look at, the state of the club and the position of the club, and it's geared now to make that next step again. I've got a big responsibility to try and make that happen on the pitch. But all the other stuff that he spearheaded, along with the other directors and the other volunteers that have made the club what it is now. The most important thing is that we continue to help grow that, from the foundations that he's put in place. So yeah, fantastic man, really great person. As I said, shame from my perspective that he won't be the chairman, but I know that he's going to have a good contribution going forward. And I think there's real positives as well, though, in terms of, and I'm sure Andrew will say the same thing, that there's other fantastic people that are involved in this club. I'm sure that we'll have a person who'll step into that role who will give the same amount of effort and energy and contribution and focus and commitment to the club. And will bring, a fresh energy and a fresh outlook and help move things forward as well. But, top man, someone I've really enjoyed working with. And I know that there's a lot of people that really appreciate what he's done for this club, not just obviously in the 12 months and I've been here, but what he's given the club the last 5 years.
Yeah, very well said, mate. He's a great man. Steve, this last one, mate, I started with you probably May, June last season, asked you for a message to the fans. What's your message to the Dunstable Town fans as we go into the summer break?
Yeah, thank you first and foremost for the unbelievable support. I extremely humbled by it, and I said that a number of times. But even in the most difficult moments that we had at the start of the season, and we weren't winning football matches, and it must be difficult, in those moments to kind of pull that courage up and support the team, and almost sometimes recognise the situation we were in. But hugely grateful for that, and and the players know it as well, and I've like I say, been involved in really great clubs in the past. But when we go away from home and you see the number of supporters that we get, it's fantastic. So I hope they certainly know that myself and the players are extremely grateful for that support. Bring it back again next season. I think that it's going to be really exciting. I think that we've laid a really good foundation. We're going to go and get some players that are going to help, develop the group. We've got some really exciting young players now who are going to step on again next season. So I hope that everyone's excited about what's going to happen. Look forward to seeing them all, like I say, Saturday at Tring, first and foremost, hopefully at the awards, evening, afterwards. And then, like I say, back into pre-season, I'm sure we'll get fantastic support then. And yeah, look forward to a successful next season.
Well, Steve, just from us, everyone that does the podcast, I know it's sometimes a bit taxing to do all this media stuff. It's kind of a new thing in non-league football. I'm seeing a lot of people do it now, but thanks so much for your time throughout the season. You, all the coaches, the players, you know what I mean? I've got to give a big thanks to Brad sitting behind the camera there. Without him, we literally couldn't do this. So he's been tremendous support to me. But I know I speak for all the fans, mate. You've been seeing at youth team games. You've been involved in, you know, maybe talking about the women's football moving forward. You've been involved in all aspects of the clubs. You, Swanee, Liam, Rich, Rory, everyone. You really bought into the Dunstable Town ethos, mate. So have a good summer. No doubt I'll still speak to you probably more than I am wife. Yeah. But thanks for all your time, mate. Appreciate it.
Well done, mate.
Thanks, mate.